orthomarketing.com. 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.
Well, hello, everybody in podcast land. I am Dean Steinman, President of Ortho Marketing, and to my right today, I have the world-famous Dr. Barry Glaser, orthodontist, entrepreneur, writer, speaker, all-around great guy. How are you today, Barry?
I'm good. I'm tired. Just got finished shoveling 2 feet of snow off my driveway.
We got hammered in New York over the last few days. It's today is Groundhog Day, February 2nd, 2021. And we're really excited to have with us a special guest today. We have with us Greg Pellegrom, who is the CEO, founder of SmileSnap. How are you today, Greg?
I'm doing great, Dean. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be with both of you, and excited to have a discussion around what's taking place in the orthodontic industry.
Oh, our pleasure. Thanks for joining us. We're really excited to pick your brain a little bit and find out what's going on with from your side of the industry and what you've seen, and talk a little bit about your company. So, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about tell us who you are. Tell us who is Greg Pellegrom, and how'd you come up with the SmileSnap program?
Sure. Yeah. Wow. I can't believe you said February 2nd. Where did January go?
Right.
Kind of crazy. So, my story starts back in 2003 when I first was hired into the orthodontic industry by a company, 3M Unitech, which I'm sure most of your listeners are very familiar with. It was a great way for me to cut my teeth in the industry. Immediately felt a connection to the industry. I really thoroughly enjoyed what orthodontics did for people, for their confidence, for their oral health. And I enjoyed the people I was working with from within 3M Unitech. It was very much a brotherhood type of a company. A lot of very strong reps in terms of industry knowledge. I learned a lot about MBT, but most importantly, I learned how to build relationships with the orthodontist. And that's where I really fell in love. A lot of my friends today are close friends, are orthodontists that I met when I got into this industry several years ago. I was originally from Michigan and had moved out to Colorado in 2000. So I've been out here 20 years now. And when I got in the orthodontic industry, it just really felt like a good fit for me. And so, that's a little bit about my background. I spent some time with a few different ortho companies. And I really kind of just got to the point in my professional career where I wanted more. I feel like I always had this itch to do something on my own. I feel like I've had an entrepreneurial spirit inside me for as long as I can remember. But I had enough restraint, I think, to know it wasn't until I had the right idea and concept and the ability to execute on it, and the right product market fit, as well as timing, right, in my personal life. And it was in April of 2019 that myself, along with the other co-founder, Jamison Stafford, who is our CTO and the technical brains behind SmileSnap, and a childhood friend of mine, that we got together and rolled this out. So we're coming up on 2 years in business, which is a lot has happened in that short amount of time. Mm-hmm. And really the concept, it came from, it sounds strange, but it was born out of frustration a little bit. Personally, on my side, I was frustrated with some of the companies that I was working for and moving to, where I felt like, a lot of the products we were putting out were over-promising and under-delivering and not really moving the needle for an orthodontic practice in terms of growth or acquiring new patients, which really is the name of the game. And then within the industry itself, I'd been around long enough that I lived through some pretty significant changes. I saw how Invisalign was impacting practices and orthodontists who maybe weren't willing to move to an aligner form of treatment. I saw the evolution of education and the number of universities or expansion of orthodontic programs in the schools begin to saturate the market a little bit. Corporations, right, started moving in and doing more orthodontics. GPs were starting to do more aligner treatment. The referral from the GP to the orthodontist was declining, and all of these things were sort of a recipe that change needed to happen. Otherwise, it was going to be a long road ahead for orthodontic practices in the traditional sense.
That's interesting. Um, obviously now, fast forward the 2 years since you started, and talk about the perfect storm for a company. A huge majority of companies got hit terribly, obviously, through COVID and the shutdown. You seem to be perfect for you. So, why don't you talk a little bit about how SmileSnap has changed the orthodontic industry? Because in my eyes, it has, and I'm sure in Dr. Glaser's eyes, it has for his practice as well.
Mhm.
So, from your side, have you seen the seismic change occur, and how is SmileSnap the leader of it, or in the lead for it?
Yeah, I mean, we like to think that we're advancing, the profession as a whole, by introducing virtual consultations and virtual visits to practices. It's interesting, Dean, when we were first rolling this out, and it was just me and my partner. You can imagine some of the initial conversations I was having, and how basically the product at the time was not much more than a minimally viable product. And the interest level from some orthodontists who were very progressive minded went well, right? And more we started hearing, hey, this is it, this is going to be part of the future. The challenge was getting them to actually subscribe to it and implement it into their practice. It's like nobody wants to be the first one to jump into the water, is what it was starting to feel like. But over about 11 months, we were able to scrape together about 70 active accounts, and continuously developing and building the platform and learning and reiterating and rolling out new features. And we felt like, look, we've got something here. This is part of the future. Orthodontists are going to have to embrace this at some point. But man, getting them to was a real challenge until it was about March 13th of 2020. I had just returned from the Shulman Group annual meeting, which I thought went quite well. But when the pandemic really hit and doctors were realizing that their practices were going to be closed, we grew to a little over 800 customers in a 90-day period. So it was explosive growth that somehow we survived on our end. Thankfully, the tech platform was very robust. And we were able to bring a lot of people in during that time to help onboard and get practices up and running. And really, one of the most rewarding parts of it for me was hearing these practices say, thank you for having something like this to help us through these challenging times. It was very rewarding. So, that's what happened to us during the pandemic. And, obviously, I'm very, very blessed and grateful for that to have happened.
Let's talk about that. So obviously, you just had an onrush of clients, and your client roster jumped 800% or more. So put your entrepreneur hat on here. How did you? Obviously, that's a huge challenge for any business. Imagine orthodontist. Next thing you know, you're seeing 50 new patients a month. The next thing you know, you have 600 new patients a month. How do you handle that? Obviously that was a huge challenge for you. So how did you face that challenge, and how did you overcome it?
Yes, scaling a business is always a challenge, and most of the time it's done over an extended period of time. For us, we had to scale very quickly. Um, One of the things that really helped us was I reached out to several orthodontists that I knew and asked if they had any employees that they had to let go or furlough that we could either hire or borrow temporarily, because we felt like they would be the ones to most quickly pick up the software and be able to offer support to practices on, workflow implementation, things like that. Um, the other part of it was that practices were in such disarray that, a lot of our shortcomings, I think, went unnoticed because, practices were so busy trying to figure out so many other things. So we just find a way to survive, and that's what we do as entrepreneurs. I have a great team of people around me. A lot of them that we brought on during that time are still part of the organization. And we had fun with it, right? And we kept reminding ourselves that, look, we're working 16 hours, 18 hours a day. And there's a lot of people out there who have lost work and lost a lot because of this pandemic. So there's no complaining. We're working 7 days a week, 16, 18 hours a day. And at the end of it, we're going to be in a really good position, to grow this business.
Great. So, so now let's talk about over the last year or so. And Barry, you could jump in anytime here. So, obviously, the people have a myth about SmileSnap or the whole virtual orthodontic, industry or platform there. What's the biggest myth about SmileSnap out there that you want to debunk?
I think the biggest myth, right, is that virtual won't work in my practice. I think it's an easy thing for someone to say, but our biggest challenge from the very beginning, and it still is today, is just the mindset of the dentist or the orthodontist, right? It's understanding that we live in a world today where consumers demand convenience. And if they don't have that offered by whatever it is they're looking for, they may not act. And if they don't act, they're not going to purchase. So getting the doctor to understand that, I know you've done it a certain way for a long time, and it probably still works fine for you today, and that's great. However, looking out into the future, and if you want growth, and if you want to expand access to your practice, and if you want to provide that convenience for your patients in your community, this is the perfect solution for that. So changing the mindset is the biggest hurdle. And that's something we have to continue to prove out by creating proof sources, use cases, other social proof aspects that we can use, that show, hey, if you implement this, whether you want to pick up 1 or 2 extra patients a month, or you want to run all your patients through this because there is an efficiency factor to it, a filtering mechanism along with it. We have practices that have done several hundred starts in less than a year using this platform. So we know it works, and it doesn't matter if you're urban, suburban, rural, there's applications, whether it's saving someone a 2-hour drive, or somebody who's afraid of the orthodontist, or somebody who just loves technology and prefers to use this. There's applications for every practice out there.
So Dean, maybe it's a good place for me to, Greg, and for me to jump in. So probably the beginning of March, Dean calls me up and says, Barry, I think I've got this great thing I want you to try. I want you to try SmileSnap. And by the way, your assessment of what the biggest roadblock is, you really hit it the bullseye, because my answer was, it's not going to work. And so it's not going to work. Patients want to come to the office, and that was my number one concern. And then the second was that we're not going to attract the right patient. We're going to get all these tire kickers. We're going to get all these people that are just going to, let's say, price shop. And I think that's a reason maybe why a lot of orthodontists still are reluctant to, let's say, give fees out over the phone. I don't want to be like the Ford dealership where you call up 5 dealerships and you haggle over $50 for the car. And and Dean basically twisted my arm, Greg, and just was like, look, I really want you to try this. Dean was basically like, we're doing this whether you like it or not. And I was very surprised, and in retrospect, I shouldn't have been. I guess maybe we all get in that mindset, but I was very surprised that really quickly we started to get a ton of hits. Now this is in March. The office was closed. We started to get a ton of hits, and it took us a little bit of time to learn a little bit how to deal with those folks, especially let's say maybe the ones that don't submit photos. But we had queued up a whole bunch of people ready to start when the office was opened again in June. And actually, we had a record number of new patient starts in June. And now the part of it was the backlog, but we wouldn't have been able to attract that backlog if our doors were closed. So, yeah, I mean, I had the same concerns that it wasn't going to work. People didn't want it, and we were going to be attracting tire kickers and not people that were really sincere about going into orthodontic treatment.
This podcast is brought to you by Presentation Multimedia. Presentation Multimedia is a full-service digital marketing agency providing website design, social media management, search engine optimization, digital advertising, and more. For more information, visit presentationmultimedia.com.
It's interesting. I had some couple clients. Obviously, any new technology, I have to vet and see what works and doesn't. And I get contacted daily from providers who are trying to offer some type of service out there, and I just seem to get a feeling that you have it impulsive here, and it really put me over the edge. Over the top for this is a client of ours, while he was closed, brought in patients who gave him a deposit by doing the SmileSnap program. So office is closed, somebody's able to do a virtual consult and actually give a deposit. So this guy's making money without showing up to work and without being open. And it wasn't, something to sneeze at. It was a pretty decent amount of money that was coming in. And because of that, and I said, we got to look into this a little bit further, and hence there, a big chunk of our clients, Ortho Marketing, are using the program because it works. Obviously, you need to have the right protocol in place and have the right methodology to do it, and for follow-ups and using the program correctly. But if you don't offer virtual consultations or virtual orthodontics or orthodontics on demand or orthodontic or appointments on demand or however we're going to mention it, you're doing a big disservice to your office and your patients.
Now, Greg, I have a question for you. And
Sure.
because I see this every day on there's a variety of social media groups on Facebook, orthodontic oriented groups, and I still see that from, let's say, the traditionalists, that the biggest concern or the biggest comment is that there's no way you can diagnose and treatment plan orthodontics by using a smartphone, and I still need the patient in the office. And so how do you answer that? Because I think that there's some kernel of truth to that I wouldn't want to start a patient without an exam and x-rays, but how do you break through a doctor who, I guess the question is, what is SmileSnap and what is it not, if that makes sense?
No, and that's a very fair assessment. In fact, I wouldn't say it's a kernel of truth. I'd say it's 100% truth. We are not positioning this as a full diagnostic platform. This is more of a way to get the conversation started with people who, are interested. They want to learn more. They want to know more, but they're not quite ready to make that commitment for an in-office consultation. That's a barrier, right? And where do people live today? They live on their phones. I've read a statistic, the average American types or swipes their phone 2,600 times a day, and that's only growing. And I think for younger generations, it could be double that. Mm-hmm. So, and when do we see patients come in? All hours of the day and night and weekend and holiday. It doesn't matter. So it's about offering that access to them to initiate the conversation. And there's really two ways that we see practices utilizing SmileSnap. Do you want to use it specifically as sort of this marketing tool to begin that engagement that I just described? And if so, yes, you're going to get price shoppers, you're going to get tire kickers. But hey, for every 10 that come in, if you can quickly weed out 7 or 8 of them and identify who the 2 or 3 that really want to move to the next step are, that is great. Because you're tapping into a population now, a segment that is not going to pick up the phone, call your office, take a half day off work. You probably never would have started these people. The other way that we're seeing practices use it, and this is actually where we really want to take our customers, and that is offering SmileSnap as an option to all patients, right? Because you don't know why somebody might choose to do a virtual consultation over the in-office to begin with, right? Now, again, they're still going to come in and get full records, and you're really going to validate, the initial, the online smile assessment that you did. But here's what it does. A lot of docs say, Greg, I love it because I get a preview of that patient before they walk through the door. That's valuable to me. Hey, Greg, we love it because we're able to get people to sign contracts, give down payments. So when they come through the door, we're 95% of the way there. And our conversion rates on SmileSnap patients who come through this way is, high 90s, if not 100%. So they love it for those reasons. And then, if you offer it as an option, hey, we have 2 choices, right? And let them decide. You can schedule, come on in, or we can start with a virtual process. And you let the consumer decide. You let the patient decide. They know in the back of their mind how serious they are, how busy they are, maybe how lazy they are, right? Or how much they love technology. Whatever the reason is, people want options and choices. Let them choose. No different than when I get to an airport, do I go to the taxi line or do I open my app and go to Uber?
True. Talking about that, jump on that a little bit, Barry. So from your standpoint, what if people follow through? Because I know there's obviously several steps involved on the SmileSnap program. The most important one, obviously, is them from the upload and take pictures. Once somebody does that, do you see a high close rate as well from your side, Bear?
We do, and it seems to be that one behavior, uploading the pictures, seems to be like the cutoff point. That a lot of people, maybe they just they're on their phone at 3 in the morning and they hit the button, but they don't go ahead and submit images. Now there are ways that where we were trying to maybe reach out to those people, but when people submit photos, we definitely see a high rate of those patients that ultimately come into, I don't know what the number is, but come into the office and ultimately start. And as Greg says, not only that, but there's also a lot of saved time, because patients, even with their smartphone, I can see that they haven't had their teeth cleaned in 10 years, or that they've got rotting teeth. And, those are patients that we then redirect to a dentist, and hopefully they get some dental care before they come to see us. So it's a time saver that way. But the people to answer your question, the people that submit images are much more likely to start. Greg, you probably have more hard statistics on that.
Yeah, there's no question. And again, that goes back to, are you directing them there as an option, right? Or are you requiring them to go there? Because those are the folks that are most likely to complete the process and not only submit photos, but submit good quality photos. Versus the ones who are just stumbling upon it because they're visiting your website and they don't quite know what they're getting into. But even those that don't submit photos, if you have a good marketing agency like Ortho Marketing, you can take those patients and put them into an email drip campaign. If you've got their information, right? Because you never know when you're going to flesh them out and they may come back. So it's, there's still some value in the ones that do not submit photos. And we do see plenty of practices that are able to convert those folks, because if they react quick, and this is the key with a lot of these patients that come in through SmileSnap, is you've got to have somebody designated within the practice to own it, right? You're in charge of this of SmileSnap. And if they haven't downloaded our mobile app to their phone, whether it's an Android or an iPhone, we have a great mobile app that makes this super convenient and easy. You don't have to log in all the time. Respond quickly. If you respond within minutes or hours, you're much more likely to get that person to commit to an in-office consultation. If you wait days, weeks, sometimes we even see months, the drop-off rate is significant. So, just a bit of a tip there for any of the listeners doing virtual. Like they say in sports, speed kills. It's the same when you're dealing with people who are reaching out to you from the internet, whether it be a virtual consult or a live chat or anything along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if in the numbers that I found, if somebody doesn't respond, especially from a lead, within 2 hours, it drops 400% chance of that patient coming in 2 hours. So you really have to jump on it ASAP there. A couple more questions, Greg. Put on your crystal ball glasses. Where do you see the orthodontic industry in the next 12 months?
One of the things I've been so impressed with in the last few years since I've been on the entrepreneurial side is the amount of innovation that's taking place in orthodontics from the startups is incredible. And I'm not trying to knock the larger orthodontic manufacturers and companies that have been around a long time. They're fantastic, but the real true innovation that's taking place, from the small startups is incredible, and it's going to make a big impact on the orthodontic industry going forward. So some of those things, right? The two biggest expenses typically to a practice is going to be their building, their physical space, and their personnel. And I think those are two areas that need to be addressed. You don't need a 4,500 square foot office with multiple TC rooms and 12 chairs and a huge waiting area. I think you're going to see the physical footprint of an orthodontic practice reduce over time. I also think that the number of staff that an orthodontist is going to need to carry is also going to shrink. And I know that can be scary to any of your listeners who are employees of orthodontists, but look, here's the reality, right? Is if you can do more with a smaller team, that is a benefit to the business in a lot of ways. And if you're doing it just as efficiently, I think outsourcing administrative tasks is going to be a big part of it. It's a part of the reason why we're seeing a lot of orthodontists join together in these DSOs or groups. Because they're able to share resources and ideas, but also a lot of the administrative tasks can be handled by those organizations, offloading that from a practice. Two areas I think that are going to impact the most: custom braces. So it's companies like K.L. Owen that are out there that Barry Owen started. Or Lightforce is an incredible system. I think that both of those bring tremendous efficiencies to orthodontic care from an appliance standpoint. And then I think it's remote patient care. So companies like Grin, based in New York, or Dental Monitoring, the ability to reduce the number of patients that come in and out of a practice in a day, but still provide that good quality care and that experience is going to make a significant impact on practices. And, along those lines, look, and I'll make another little plug for us. You can use SmileSnap for virtual visits. And this is where a lot of our customers aren't utilizing our platform's full capacity. Now, we're not a monitoring or tracking platform from beginning to end, but you can have photos submitted, and we're getting ready to roll out the ability to request photos. But in three big areas: observation patients or recall patients, right? Utilizing SmileSnap for that is a big time saver for everybody. Retainer checks, right? Doing those through our platform is a big time saver, as well as triaging emergency patients and maybe the occasional, aligner check. So that's an area where you can use our platform where you're paying on just a monthly subscription, not per scan or use, to utilize our platform. So that's, and I think the last part of that, I'd say 3D printing is definitely making a big impact. So that's sort of my vision for ortho in the next few years.
Cool. And two last questions for you. What's your go-to as far as keeping up on trends, as far as learning new things, educating yourself? Is there a particular podcast, book, website that you go to just to keep up with? It doesn't have to be in the ortho world. It could be business, it could be personal, it could be anything. So, is there anything that you could recommend to people? I just dusted off the dust of How to Win Friends and Influence People that I first took the Dale Carnegie course, 30 some odd years ago. The book was written 85 years ago, and it's more relevant now than ever.
Sure.
So is there anything that you can recommend as far as a set of podcast, website, book that you like to read or listen to, watch?
For me personally, I do check into some of the podcasts that are out there, but where I get to most of them and where I spend a lot of my time is on LinkedIn. In fact, I had a conversation with somebody who is very well connected at LinkedIn, talking about they've seen the activity in the medical and dental industry just explode over the last year on LinkedIn. So for me, that's where I find a lot of good content, what's going on with other companies that are out there. And ultimately, a lot of that does direct me to certain podcasts, but I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn.
Good. And one last question for you. What makes you smile?
Me? Geez, what makes me smile? Look, for me, I'm 47 years old. I got teenage boys. I've lived a really good life. But where I'm finding myself lately really becoming happy is, building a company, creating something that is new and unique and different that I truly believe is a supportive technology, right? We're not trying to disrupt in a negative way, but more or less provide this industry, which has been wonderful to me and to my family for almost 20 years now, to give back, to have employees that, love what we're doing, what we're creating, and, always working to try to take it to that next level. So when we do roll out a new feature, or I talk to a customer and they share with me their experiences, and Dr. Glaser, I love that you shared that with me today, because it's easy to focus on the negative, but when you have to find the silver lining and the positive things that happen in a day, because startup life is brutal. Entrepreneurship is tough.
It is.
And so
if it was easy, everybody would do it,
Right. Right.
Sure.
And Dean, I just can't thank, some of the people along this journey for me. Sadly, I've been disappointed by some very close friends. But the flip side of that is I've been blown away by some of the support. And, someone like you in particular, Dean, who not only pushed Dr. Glaser to try this, but several other of your clients that we share in common, because you believed in us, you believed in me, you believed in the product, the vision, and what we're building. That means a lot. And that's really where I get the intrinsic, motivation and gratification of what we're doing at SmileSnap. And really, we're just getting, started. I feel like there's so much more we can do to help bring more patients into the orthodontic offices and prevent them from, making the, frankly, mistake of utilizing a, male aligner service that doesn't include an orthodontist overseeing the care. That's where we're going, and that's what moves me every day.
Great. And one last question for you: Hershey bar or Reese's?
Well, that's a no-brainer. Reese's all day long.
There you go. I
Yeah.
gotta like this guy.
Another one. All right. Great. All right. Greg, thanks so much for joining us. And if somebody wants to get more information, contact you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, look, anybody listening to this that wants more information, probably the two best ways is one, go directly to our website, which is SmileSnap.com. You can request a recorded demo of the platform that you can watch on your time. You can also have a live demo of the software with one of our account executives, which is a little bit more thorough and in-depth. But if you just want to reach out to me directly, I'd love to hear from anybody. So my email is greg@smilesnap.com. And Dean, thank you so much again. Barry, really great to get to talk to you. I'd love to chat with you more offline and see maybe if there's other ways that we can help you with the platform. But thank you guys so much.
Great, Greg. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Everybody out there in podcast land, be safe. Enjoy Groundhog Day today. I heard he saw his shadow. So it's funny. I heard one stat that in New York, even though we saw his shadow, 34% of the time that's wrong. So go figure with that. But with that said, everybody out there, thanks so much for listening. Happy smiles and be safe.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Orthomarketing.com. 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.